I'm calling the special workshop, it's not special, it's a board agenda workshop to order for today. Welcome citizens of Clay County, we have a number of visitors today. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend today's school board workshop. This workshop is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly among ourselves and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. There will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions at the end of the workshop presentation. Questions will be allowed. Public comment will not be allowed. If you wish to ask a question, please fill out a comment card, hand that card to a deputy or a chief, as the case may be, and your participation is always welcome and appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
I would just add to the record that every time that we meet, it's special.
It is special.
Sure
it is special. I just didn't want, to confuse.
We do have a lengthy schedule today. We're going to not only review the agenda for the October workshop, but then right after that, we have the realignment of boundaries for Oakley High School, Oakley Junior High School up for discussion. We also have the school board member boundary discussion also. And then after that, we have executive session. I would expect executive session to last at least 45 minutes in length. So I'm just trying to set expectations in time frame for everybody here at this particular meeting. In addition, before I forget, for the school board meeting, the discipline hearings before that, we're looking at about 7 to 10 cases with a tentative starting time of 2:30, and I'll put out a final time by Friday.
What's for dinner?
Just trying to set.
You're providing dinner.
Just trying to set reasonable expectations for everybody. Setting the stage for everyone. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go through the agenda. The first item is the minutes from the board workshop on August 24th, as well as the discipline hearings on September 2nd. Any questions on that item? Okay. The second item is school board members out-of-county travel expenses for the FSBA FADS annual conference.
Is everyone going?
I am going.
I just registered. I saw that the two of you are registered.
Right.
I'm not certain if you're registered or
Ladies
not.
and
Going. Okay. If you are going to register, go. Please do so soon because the hotel rooms do book up. So
very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, third item, personnel consent agenda. And of course, this will be renewed and refreshed prior to that. There's no job descriptions on here, and just the normal processes through our HR department. Number 4 is the K-12 academic services out-of-state overnight student travel.
And I would like to volunteer to be a chaperone. Clay High.
On which one?
The Clay High, the New York City one. Tour of Broadway, yeah.
So let it be noted, Ms. Pickett.
Got it. We'll let Clay High know.
Just drop that. I'll make April available, not a problem.
Well, now, Mary, I saw where the superintendent was driving a bus at some district, so
Oh, there we go.
I'm thinking
There we go. I
there's
can ride that
several
bus.
opportunities.
Trust you.
Minnesota, yeah.
I always appreciate the opportunities for growth that you all give me. But you need special licensure for that.
That's right.
You don't have it here?
Okay, we're
That should be a requirement.
froggy here this morning, anticipating a long day. Okay, we're on number 5. 5 is our resident clinical faculty memorandum of understanding with UNF. This used to be called Sprint. As a result of this particular program, let's see, we have a total of 12 final interns, 37 pre-interns, and it'll go up to 38 here in the spring. That's what's in the fall. So we are seeing some folks come out of College of Education, but not enough to fill the gap. Currently, we have 31 open positions. I know that the superintendents met last week. There's a big topic for discussion is labor shortage, just like labor shortages in every industry are out there. We see them in our support as well as our instructional.
How are we doing with our subs? Has that improved at all?
That's a topic for executive session. We have a 79% fill rate, which is better than many of the superintendents that I sat next to. had lower percentages than that, but it's still an area for improvement and an area that we'll discuss how to do that.
And how's it working out using our district staff? I've heard from
They're
some
doing,
elementary
they're
schools.
doing
that
great.
they-
Miss Pickett has learned all kinds of things. I didn't know she could teach English.
Well,
was
she
at
can
it.
speak it.
She was at it,
A little bit.
she was at Wilkinson Junior High, I believe, out there. So we've all chipped in, and one of the things that's great about our district is we have great people willing to step forward with a servant's heart. And so we're doing the best that we can. I think that's why we're successful as an organization. But the labor shortage is real. It is a real thing. It's real for our bus drivers, it's real for our custodians, for our classroom assistants, and it's real for our teaching staff, too. Now, in addition, to combat class size, we've added 28 instructional positions since the start of school. The original 20 that were on the allocation, package, plus an additional 8. And so, when you want more of a product and there's less available, that only puts you further behind in that whole process. But back to this is something that's going to help.
Well, we appreciate what staff is doing at the district, going in and filling in, so thank you.
Now, 6 is the affiliation agreement with the University of North Florida. 6, 7, and 8. One is with Old Dominion, one is with Arkansas State. All are basically the same agreements. For me, any university that wants to place an intern in Clay County schools, we want them to do that, because when people come out and they see the schools and they actually work within our schools, I think that's a selling point to get people for eventual permanent employment, and that's the whole purpose to it. So on to number 9, which is the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. This would be new. We never did, we've always had Red Ribbon Week. It's going to be October 25th through 29th, but I think it's meritorious enough to make sure that we have a proclamation from the board about trying to make everything, our whole campus is drug-free, and some of the things that you'll see. I think we're going to get we have recognition of that at the beginning of the meeting, as well as a calendar of student art relative to this topic. I think that there is an increase of this particular issue that is going on right now, so it's important for us to emphasize.
Are we still doing the DARE program only in the Orange Park Elementary Schools?
Yes.
No others?
So now we're on to Lutheran Services, Florida Standard Contract. This is for students with emotional and behavioral disabilities through our SEDNet program. Funding is provided by non-Medicaid mental health services to families to reduce the need for higher levels of care in our SEDNet program. Number 11 is proposed allocation changes. If you look at it, it's a lot of swapping back and forth, adding and deleting without much additional cost relative to the moves that are made there. Then for 12, deletion of certain items. That's the typical standard deletion of items no longer needed. 13 is the contract renewal for mechanical and electrical engineering. You can see the 5 companies listed towards the bottom of the document itself, listed in alphabetical order. The next item is the contract renewal for benefit focus. There was how about this, a reduction in cost of $40,000. How many times do we bring items for a reduction in cost? This is due to the Bailey Group's negotiation and the reduction of cost relative to benefit focus, which is the program that actually runs our employee benefits. For number 15, this is a memorandum of understanding with U.S. Naval Criminal Investigative Service. This is a data sharing agreement which allows our police department to coordinate with other police agencies and receive information relative to police reports, etc., that other agencies write in an effort to make our schools even that much safer. 16 is the interlocal agreement for to sell low-priced fuel in the Keystone area for their fire station number 23. This is a standard contract that we've done many times in the past. 17 is Pre-Qualification of Contractors. Uh, 18 is the Phase 2 plans and specifications for elementary school art, which is slated to open August 2023. So this is the standard process, but I do want to call note in full transparency to the board, the fact that the cost of the construction has gone up significantly, just like everything else that's out there. So the estimated cost goes to 33 million roughly, from 22 million prior. And so,
Elementary school.
so this is pretty typical, standard in the industry. We do have representatives from Parish McCall here.
In the corner.
They're in the, we didn't mean to put you in the
We can move your
corner.
chairs over
Good to
here,
see
there's
you.
a wall, you can
In
scoot to if you want.
in case there's any questions about that. I mean, I think that, one, the building of school R is important. Remember that's going to relieve some of the pressure points that we have with Patterson Elementary as well as other schools, right? So it's a question of the cost going up, and just to be fully transparent, I thought it was important that we documented that here so you could see the cost of it. We will be able to build this without borrowing any money using existing impact fees. And so, even at the increased price. So obviously when I saw the amount go up, I swallowed a little harder, and then thought, well, somebody needs to be here to explain this, right? That was the second thing that went through my mind. So please, I don't want them to have to stay the whole meeting, but I thought it would be important that if you wanted to engage in any questions, that you would have it right from the horse's mouth, so to speak, relative to this topic.
I just have a quick question. We're building a new school. There are going to be many parts of this infrastructure that you obviously are going to need to complete this school. Can we assume, and I know that's a horrible word to use, that the materials that we're going to need for the school will be available?
Yes, I'll speak to that. My name is Mike Walsh. I'm the president of Parish McCall Constructors. And it is true that in the industry we're facing a lot of material shortages and longer lead times to get materials on projects. But the good news in this instance is we're starting the process early enough that we will be able to have all the material on site when we need it. I don't anticipate that being an
I'm
issue.
just thinking, I recently read something about PVC piping and how that's the next thing to go, whatever.
Steel, everything right now takes longer to get, but we're planning for that well enough in advance that I believe we'll be able to have everything we need when we need it.
Awesome, thank you.
And Mr. Brodsky, what's our timeline? When will we start and expect to finish?
August of 2023
Is when we want to open?
Is when
is when we're gonna open.
Right, so we'll
So,
start building?
we're gonna start building soon.
Mm-hmm.
When we built Discovery Oaks, that was on an accelerated time frame. And there's one thing, because I probably said this about 8 times to Bryce, it is gonna open in August 2023, right? So if you gotta start tomorrow, we start tomorrow, you know, to ensure that it's going to be, and that's kind of, the deadline very important to me because of the disruption that it creates to the school system if it's not ready, you know, on day one. So we believe that we've given enough lead time to have all the materials, complete the construction, and open it up in August of 2023. I went to order a couch, and they told me it took 6 months to get a couch. So, same with a car, so there are extreme complications in the industry that are there, but Bryce, shake your head. How many times have I said that to you? About 8. Right? Hey, I don't care if we start tomorrow, but August of 2023 is relatively, you know, right around the corner in our world. So.
And like Discovery Oaks, this will be built with no portables?
No
That's
problem.
No
right.
portables?
And staff has, you know, gotten this process going early enough. We're actually obligated under our contract to complete the school by the end of May 2023. So the so the new principal and school staff have time to get moved in and set up. And we are fully committed to that date.
When do we expect the groundbreaking?
Groundbreaking ceremony, Bryce.
We're looking at, February, March.
Sometime in the spring.
You go put that out when we get the date.
You may see a little different changes in GMPs because of the long lead times on some of this material. We may do the pre-engineered metal building as a separate GMP to get that queued in, get the price locked in. So, we're going to reach out to DOE to do our plan review, and they're willing to do a phase 2 review as a final, so they could release the metal building. So we're trying to minimize the impacts of leak.
And is that you, Dr. Kim? Hiding back there? It's good to see you.
Maybe
Keep
recorded.
yeah, the drone video's coming too. That was like primo. That was awesome.
Any,
Just
I
being
think that
able
was
to
Mr.
see how
Fossa.
everything was
Didn't you do the drones?
progressing.
You did one, yeah, the drones were nice.
any other questions for Parish McCall? I mean, I know that they would love to hear about realignment of boundaries at Oakley High School
Yeah.
and other stuff, but.
Go get that building built. Come on. What are you standing
And save us some money.
Every chance
Well,
we get.
Yeah.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
for
very
coming.
much.
We really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
being
Nice
here.
to see you again.
Okay, number 19 is the change order for Tynes Elementary, and this is actually a cost savings of $25,000 by direct purchase. 20 is the PPL list, which identifies eligible projects in order to use capital outlay and debt service funds. It has to be listed and sent to the state, and this is that listing. You'll notice that it's all related to School R and the opening of that school.
Does it have to be approved by the state?
21 is the school due facility condition assessment contract. So, if you recall, when we first received the half-cent sales tax approval for the half-cent sales tax, we had all met individually with facilities, and they had it listed out, a timeline of events. And granted, some of the events, the early parts of those events are non-glamorous, hate to say it, but the non-sexy stuff, such as replacing air conditioning units, roofs, all of those kinds of things. But if you recall the timeline presented, at some point we have to do a facility condition assessment, which means look at every single property, evaluate where they are as far as age, etc., so that you can prioritize those projects in an effective and efficient manner. Clay County Schools has over 5 million square feet of space. That's right, you heard that correctly. 5 million square feet of space. The actual condition of all of those units and all those spaces needs to be done, and needs to be done by an independent outside organization in order to prioritize those projects down the road. That's what this project is and what this item is. School Dude, by the way, which sounds funky or whatever, is actually the work order process, the company that we use for our work order process. So this would integrate those two things together so that we can evaluate each school facility to make those determinations in the future. So that's why that's there. A very important part of the process, because remember, this is a 30-year venture. Long after all of us are gone, this process will still be moving forward. Except for Terry Dennis, she'll still be here. Okay, for agenda, D1 is Human Resource Special Action A. If you should have questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. For D2 and D3, this is the public hearings related to the police department's policies to put us in compliance with the statutes that were passed in the last legislative session. Any questions about the agenda itself? Okay, hearing none, then we're going to move forward and talk about the realignment of Oakley High School attendance boundaries as well as Oakley Junior High School's attendance boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about why we're doing this and why this is here. I kind of hinted towards it in the last time that we met. I hinted towards it, but you know, School Board Policy 6.01K basically says that we're obligated as a board to address the issue if the school goes over maximum size capacity. The threshold limit that's listed within your own policy is, for a high school, is 2,500 students. Oakley High School is almost at 2,700 students.
Even with the realignment we did last year.
Even with the realignment of Ridgeview High School and some of the portions that we did. So today, this morning, we're going to have a presentation from Mr. Fossa showing you potential solutions. We're also going to hear from Mr. Boyack, principal of Oakley High School, primarily talking about the need in which to do this and possible solutions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fossa.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all here. We have a packed house, and I feel underdressed, and I apologize for that. So, first slide here. Let's see, is this the beginning? Nope. This whole thing. All right, first slide that we're looking at here is basically the entire district, and these are all the high school districts, as you can see. Just to give you a little bit of wayfinding, over here is Middleburg, the blue is Ridgeview with the new section added from when we went ahead and redistricted last year. Oakley's in the middle, and of course Solomon Island is off to the right. This slide you can see here goes ahead and shows what the current capacities are and where we are as far as percentage goes. This is our big focus right here. Oakley High School at 110%, and then also we're looking at Orange Park at 68%, and at Ridgeview at some point a little bit further down at about 85%. Okay, next slide, please. I just want to show you all the different developments going on in the Oakley area. You can see it here, but if you drive up through there, you'll see there's quite a bit. And again, showing that currently Oakley High School is at 110% capacity, projected to have about 230 new students, and that's very conservative. Stuff is coming in left and right. And the area that you see in red is the target area that I'm looking at right now to be able to move to Orange Park High School. It's the Argyle area right where Argyle Elementary School is. Okay. Next slide, please. So here's the zooming in, and all these little dots are students. Our program allows us to put a latitude and longitude on every particular student, and so you can see where the concentration is. Again, wayfinding right here is Argyle Elementary School. This is, for planning purposes, this is like a little creek that goes through here and through here. And I know it looks like I'm splitting a neighborhood here, but we're not. You can't get from this neighborhood to that neighborhood. You actually have to drive up Cheswick Oaks, all the way to Argyle Forest Boulevard, and then come back in through Oakleaf to get to this back. So even though it looks like we're splitting a neighborhood, we're not. Because that's one of the things we don't want to do, is split a neighborhood. So if we look at this right now, if you look at all the high school students there, it's about 459. But that's grades 9 through 12. That's all of them. And obviously we're not going to move them all. So I want to kind of show you as we step down, if we look just at the seniors staying, or maybe the seniors and juniors staying, or maybe just the freshmen leaving. I just want to show you what they all look like, and we did the study all the way through.
Mr. Fossa, last year when we did it, did we leave just the seniors or juniors? We left juniors and seniors, correct?
We let the seniors stay, and then there were some other things we did, like if you were in an academy, or if you're in the ACE program. That's what we did for those guys. Okay. So you can see what would happen if we made that change. If we do nothing, and that's what always, you guys probably get mad at me about, if we do nothing, it'll go to 117% and continue to grow. And Orange Park will just sit there at about 69% with all this potential area, and there's no growth going on in the Orange Park area. So if we do make the change of all of them, Oakley High School will go about 84% with plenty of room for growth, and that would help Orange Park and bring Orange Park up to 85%. Distances, everybody's concerned about distances, but from that area to Oakleaf, it's about 5.2 miles, and to go from that area to Orange Park High, it's about 6. So you gain a mile in transportation. We've already talked to transportation about this, and they're fine with that. It's 1 extra mile added. Next slide, please. So this is just looking at grades 9 through 11, leaving the seniors. And yes, it does drop it down to about 342. Oakleaf High School would go to 96.7%, does allow for some growth. And then Orange Park will bump up to about 83%, which is really great. And again, looking at the area, again, outlined here, and you can see where the kids are. This is an area here in Cheswick Oaks that's growing right now, so that would potentially go to Orange Park as we move along. There's another area down in here that's going Wilford Preserve, I believe it is, and that would remain going to Oakleaf High School.
Is
So
that
we'll allow
all
for that growth.
Argyle Elementary area? That's
Yes,
where we'll take those
exactly,
kids
and I'll
from?
show you earlier, this is exactly the school zone for Argyle Elementary, so it kind of makes sense. And then I'm gonna dovetail into the junior high piece, because it seems like if you're gonna go to junior high school, you should also go to the same high school area from there. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what it would look like if we went ahead and brought this into the Orange Park area. You can see I kind of included this area. And this is more defined line you can see now, again, separating these two neighborhoods. Again, you can't get from one neighborhood to the other. So it's not like Johnny across the street is going to Orange Park High, and then Sally, who is his next door neighbor, is going to Oakley High School. They'll be backyard neighbors separated by a fence, but you can't get there unless you bust through the fence or whatever.
Mr.
Tell me
Foster?
where Blanding Boulevard is.
So Blanding Boulevard, I apologize for that, is, let's see, this is S. Bryan Jennings, so Blanding is right over here.
Okay,
And you can see right there, this is Orange Park High School right in here.
all right.
What's the proposed date for Cheswick Oaks to be open through?
They're already building now, so the road is pushed down, and I don't know the exact, but I haven't seen any permits come through yet for models or anything. Like some of, like over in, off of Sandridge, the new, what's it called, Granary Park, they've already got 12 models going in over there, way ahead of schedule. I wasn't expecting to see that for a while, and all of a sudden I saw these permits come through, and I called, what is this about? I go, they're the models for Granary Park, so that's happening quicker than I thought.
So they are building through. I mean, we know that.
Yes. Well, the road has been extended, so if you can actually drive right down here, we can see that all this
Yep.
is going through. Okay, all right, so this is if we just moved the 9th and 10th graders and left the juniors and seniors. And you can see it significantly changes. Oakleaf High still at 100% doesn't really help us any. That's really what we want. We want to try to relieve Oakleaf High School. And Orange Park goes to 78% from there. Okay, next slide, please. And this is only if we move the freshmen. So if only the freshmen went, Orange Park, Oakleaf High School stays at 105%, Oakleaf goes to 74%. Again, not achieving the goal that we're looking for. But I did want to show you all the different options. I think that's important. Okay. So here's some other options. This is actually looking at what the Oakleaf High School looked like last year. And I want to show you this slide because, again, all these little dots are the students. And you can kind of see where they all live right now. And then last year, thanks to our great efforts that you guys helped us with, I appreciate that, this area now is going to Ridgeview. So one other area we could look at is north of Trail Ridge is a neighborhood right in here called Kindlewood. And they're building quite a bit in there. So we could also grab some of this area from Kindlewood and have them go to Ridgeview. Right now it's about 54 students, but there's a lot of growth in that area. So we could also help relieve Oakleaf High School and help Ridgeview by sending some of those students to Ridgeview. Okay. I wanted to show side-by-side slide, and this is actually showing you a piece in Argyle that would go to Orange Park, and this would be showing the piece over here that would go to Ridgeview if we decided to do that. Together, if we did both of these together, Oakleaf High School would go to 94%. I'm sure that would make you very happy. And so that would help some of our other schools as well.
What grade levels for the Oakleaf High School are you looking at in that chart?
It would be the same as we looked at before. The seniors would be staying, and the juniors through freshmen would go to Ridgeview High School. Okay. And I just wanted to point out what the two new neighborhoods that are coming in, and you can see how this would stay with Oakleaf High School, and this one would go to Orange Park. The next couple slides is moving the same area from Oakleaf Junior. I'm sorry, is there any questions on the high school piece? Okay. So this next piece is showing you what it would look like for the junior high. So what we see here are all the junior high school zones. And I know that we're getting ready to do one for Lake Asbury Junior, so this will change a little bit once that happens. So the middle area is Lake Asbury. Of course, down here is Green Cove. And then over here is Wilkinson. At the very top is Oakley Junior. And then at the very top around here is Orange Park Junior. Here are your capacities at this time. Looking at Oakley, yeah, it's sitting at 87%, but there's a lot of portables there. So it'll allow us a little bit of portable reduction as well. And then looking at Orange Park, again, at 66%. So they really need some help there. And it would just kind of make sense that if you're going to be going to Orange Park High School, you probably should be going to Orange Park Junior. Okay, next slide. The question that you had asked about Argyle Elementary School, you can see the Argyle Elementary School zone is almost exactly what we're looking at. So those students that go to Argyle Elementary would go to Argyle, then to Orange Park Junior, and then Orange Park High School. This is how it was set up years before we even built Oakley, so it's not like this hasn't been done before. This was how it was years before Oakley came along. So currently, right now, Oakley Junior is at 87%. We're expecting about 111 new students coming in through the growth, and again, that's conservative. Orange Park Junior is sitting at about 66% with no growth in that area. So they've got a potential for quite a few seats, about 360 seats over there. If we do nothing, Oakley Junior will go to 92%, but remember, there's a lot of portables there. And if we can relieve some of those portables, that's the goal. I'm in a portable now in my new job, and I hate it. It's already, the bar unit's cracked out. I went in work the other day, it was 82 degrees at 7:30 in the morning. Luckily, the maintenance guys were there pretty quick and got it fixed, but I had to go to the library, and then I had to go to the drama room, talk about drama on the board. So, but it's good to get rid of portables. They're not the best. So if we did make the change, Oakley Junior would go to 74%. Again, that's not taking the portables out. That's leaving all the current capacity. That number would climb as we remove portables. And that would bring Orange Park Junior to about 85%, which I think really is a good number for the junior high piece. Same area, no change. Again, we're not splitting neighborhoods. It's a nice, clean, division.
What's our plan for notifying families?
So I think we're going to go ahead and have couple community briefings, and then I believe we'd send out letters as well to let them know that.
So the plan would be, one, obviously we want to get some direction from the board today, as to what your thoughts are. But then we would send letters out to those families affected. We're looking at potentially a meeting on October 21st at Orange Park High School for the high school piece, and the 25th, Monday, the 25th of October, at 6 o'clock, Orange Park Junior High. That's, obviously we haven't calendared this, but that was the thought process. The thought process there was that it would give us time to have those meetings prior to the October agenda review meeting. We would then be able to advertise at the November meeting, and then we would have a final vote, public hearing on the December meeting, because there is the 28-day gap between there. So that is the timeline or the time process. So before we get into all of that, are you almost done with yours?
I am.
Okay. I wanted to give Mr. Boyack the chance to be here and the chance to kind of speak and be heard. When you're the principal of a large school, it does create challenges, and I think it'd be important for the board to hear, what's really happening at Oakley High School. And so, Mr. Boyack, you take it away.
So I first want to just thank the board for the rezoning efforts last year. I can't imagine where we would be if that had not been done. So I do appreciate your help with that. I want to start off by saying Oakley High School is a great school. We're doing a lot of really amazing things, and I'm proud of a lot of our accomplishments. But I did want to, when you see capacity and things like that, I don't think it paints the full picture. Just to give you an idea, we are right now, as of Friday, 772 students more than the second highest school in Clay County. So we have almost 800 kids more than anybody else does right now. And even Mr. Fossa kind of said that his estimates for growth are very conservative. I know you have certain rules that you can't put out there, but every year, that I've been in Oakley for 5 years now, every year we have outpaced the estimates for growth in that area, and I know Ms. Bola, you know that as well. I want to talk a little bit about just kind of what we're doing with our current space. Right now, we have 3 teachers that are roaming teachers. They don't have a classroom to themselves. I would have a 4th teacher that was roaming, but it was a new allocation and I wasn't able to hire it, so I had to split it up amongst other teachers. I've got teachers I've got staff that are splitting offices. I've got 2 teachers that are splitting the same classroom. So, I mean, I'm using a lot of the space that I have. We've talked about portables. We have 40 portables at Oakley High School. We've obviously got a very large campus. I mean, it takes about a quarter mile to walk from the far back portable all the way up to the front. When you throw 2,700 kids into that, bumping into each other and I mean, having those types of issues, obviously, you increase the likelihood of frustration, you increase the likelihood of behavioral issues, and those sorts of things. One of our biggest issues is tardies right now. And you can attribute that a lot to the number of kids trying to navigate their way through the hallways, and as well to the traffic. I mean, Plantation Oaks Boulevard is a 2-lane road. And I sat out there with a clicker the other morning and we had over 1,000 cars come through between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. It is backed up all the way to the roundabout, past the roundabout, and past Oakley Village Elementary. I mean, it's one of those things we do everything we can to try to get kids on time, and we all know the academic loss that happens when you have consistent tardies. It leads to frustration on the kid part, it leads to frustration on the parents, it leads to frustration on the teachers. And that's one of the biggest issues that we have with that just being a 2-lane road. I already talked about that. Lunches, we operate 4 lunches, is the most that we can operate. We have 675 kids a lunch. So when you ultimately break that down with social distancing and things like that, we can't fit everybody in the cafeteria, so we've had to move to 4 different areas for lunch. Kids can eat in the media center, they can eat in the cafeteria, they can eat in the atrium. We've created some picnic tables in the atrium, and we put an outdoor seating section out there. But we still have to run through 675 kids through the lunch lines. And I mean, you get your 30-minute lunch, but at the end of the day, some of the kids are having less than 10 minutes to eat. Some kids don't even bother going into the cafeteria because of the lack of space in there and those sorts of things as well. So obviously that's one of our biggest frustrations. This next one is kind of a selfish thing for me. It's hard to staff a school that is this size, especially when you're competing against other schools of much lower capacities. I've lost testing coordinators, I've lost record secretaries, I've lost ESE secretaries, not because they didn't love our school and they didn't love the things that we're doing, but because would you rather be a testing secretary with 2,700 kids or a testing secretary with 1,400 kids? I mean, it's just one of those things that it makes it very difficult to staff. I know we're going to talk about the substitute things later, but at the end of the day, we are very limited on where we can have. Hopefully we can have some events like homecoming dances and proms and things like that more consistently in the future. But even before the pandemic, we had to limit who could go to homecoming dances, and we could only sell certain numbers of tickets because of the venues that we're limited to. And I'm all for competition, but kids shouldn't have to compete to go to prom. Like, I mean, we should be able to offer these things, and that's not even talking about CTE programs and some of the other things that we're constantly having to tell kids, sorry, we don't have space in that program right now. And it's just a matter of size. I would love to keep everybody, but I mean, obviously, some of the things that we talked about are problematic, to say the least. And those are just some of those things. I know this is never an easy conversation. It's never an easy decision. Everybody's for redistricting until it affects them. But at the end of the day, I feel like very, very strongly that we have to do something in order to improve the educational environment at Oakley High School. And please don't get me wrong, we are a rock star school. I'm proud of our accomplishments, and I'm proud of all the things that we're able to do. But I would definitely urgently ask for some assistance with this matter.
So let me just kind of echo that, Matt and his team do an outstanding job there, they really do. I think I could throw out the invitation, right, Matt? If any of you want to go out there and actually see this in action, I would encourage you to go out there and see that. So for me, you know, when I see that the board policy stipulates that at 2,500, an action needs to occur, and then you listen to the ground people that are actually out there seeing this, there is the need that's there. Now, there's another gentleman sitting next to him that luckily, we have a great place for students to go. And so I want to give Mr. Gunder a minute to kind of talk about Orange Park High School. You know, if there's ever a kid-centric principal, it would be Ivan Gunder. Kids just gravitate towards Ivan Gunder and the work that he does. And so, you know, I'm always amazed, and I think Mr. Boyack said it best. Everybody thinks redistricting is a great idea until it affects their child, right? So I wanted to kind of advertise out there for all parents and for the children that will be affected. There's a great place to go, and that's Orange Park High School. So Mr. Gunder, tell us a little bit about Orange Park High School and your welcoming of these students.
All right, good morning. First, I'll just say I'm grateful to be the principal at Orange Park and thankful for the opportunity to return back, you know, to Orange Park High School. So Orange Park, for the years when I was a teacher, you know, Orange Park was the school. You know, it was the school on every aspect. And, you know, unfortunately, it's a great time right now to be at Orange Park. Next year, we're getting a new football stadium, scoreboard. You know, so we have a lot of alumni that's coming back now. They want to see what's going on, you know, what's going to happen moving forward. So we have a plethora of activities going on with that. But Orange Park is one of those things, is, you know, we're right on the corner of Bland and Kingsley. We don't have that curb appeal, but we're working on that. We have a plan. The front office getting redone next summer. So we're going to have a brand new front office, you know, so we'll get a little of that curb appeal. But it's one of those places inside, once you get there, you won't leave. You know, Mr. Brodsky stated, you know, I'm all about students and teachers. You know, again, you know, the old saying is that, you know, students don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. I mean, I live by that, you know, and I think relationships are very, very important, and that's what Orange Park offers. You know, we have about 20 teachers there at Orange Park right now that graduated from Orange Park High School. So the pride factor is there, you know, and so we're excited for the opportunity of growth, and, you know, I know it helped Mr. Boyack, but we want to embrace that because we want to build our capacity. You know, the more, you know, effect you have on people, the broader the horizon, and it's going to do more for education and more for people's lives moving forward. So I'm all for it. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the opportunities. We're going to do some great things. And I know there's some misconceptions out there, but we're going to be all right, and we're going to be good. You know, you talk about competition, yeah, we're good friends, but I want to do better than Oakley, and we will do better than Oakley. You know, so but that's the thing though. And it has bigger things that, you know, you go into athletics and all that kind of stuff. The thought of just being in the same district, you know, what those Friday night games will look like. You know, now we talk about pride. You know, so those kids in Argyle, they want to be proud of their school. Everywhere I go now, outside, I wear Orange Park gear. You know, and people, you know, may look like, but I'm be proud of my school, and that's what we want the students and parents to feel too. And even, I think Mr. Foster mentioned earlier, a lot of that used to be part of Orange Park, so some of those parents went to Orange Park. You know, so that's exciting too. So now you get to return back to the school that I went to. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So again, it's all in fun and all good, but I agree with Mr. Boyd. We want to just provide that first class education. But, you know, while we're learning, let's have fun while we do it too also, and then, you know, continue to try to make the world a better place.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Boyack or Mr. Gunder?
I gotta say, I love both of your schools. I mean, my students, my children, the students that I taught have gone literally to both of your schools. I started at W.E. Cherry, they went to Orange Park, and there was a lot of pride in that neighborhood. And you're right, Mr. Foss, all of those students, I mean, I was at W.E. Cherry when we had those 14 buses coming through and taking kids back to Argyle. And then I switched over and went to Argyle. And it was an amazing difference in the behavior of the children. And this is one of my greatest concerns through this whole process. I understand the numbers, I understand the pressure you guys are under with the volume of people that you have there. And I love coming to visit because I get my share of hugs every time I'm there, and it's wonderful. But we have been, and I'm saying we as Argyle, have been at Oakley now for years.
Yeah.
We started it. And to have to drive through Duval County to get into Argyle has been sort of a, sort of that little last forgotten spot. And I really, in this whole process, we need to make certain that that very strong community, Argyle is an incredibly strong community, doesn't feel that they're being bounced around, that I love the fact that you are welcoming them back. I think that's huge, Mr. Gunder. The thing that just weighs most heavily on my heart right now, though, is also Landing Boulevard. Oh my God, I'm sorry, but that is the behavior problems that we had at W.E. Cherry from the students coming from Argyle was the fact that they had to sit on that bus. Yeah, it's another mile, but sometimes that bus ride was an hour long. And to go 6 miles for an hour, and it was just so frustrating at the end of the day, making those call outs to parents. I mean, we had it at the beginning of this year. Our bus is going to be late because, whatever. Making those calls to parents and saying, yes, it's going to be late, we're sorry, but they're stuck right now outside of, the mall or wherever. No matter what we've done in that area, that still continues to be the busiest intersection in all of Northeast Florida. Argyle and Landing, bleh. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible area. Right now, all of those people have to drive to or take buses to Oakley. So that will alleviate some of that pressure from Oakley, and that road, I stood out there with Chief as well, just watching, and that was during junior high time, and I was amazed at how many people were driving that road and just sitting in so many ways. I'm hoping that whatever we do, we really concentrate on the transportation issues for those children and getting them home in a timely manner and here again from Orange Park Junior High. Probably won't, it might be even worse because they're leaving at 3:30 in the afternoon, you're starting to get into the military traffic, you're starting to get into the other traffic. That's the thing that's weighing the most on my mind right now. The whole transportation issue and getting those students home and getting them to school on time as well. A lot of people say, you're going against traffic. That's a bunch of malarkey because the traffic is horrible both ways on Landing Boulevard. Probably is worse now than it was back before we opened Argyle and Oakley Junior. So, and that whole comment about Oakley Junior and their portables, oh my gosh, that whole school was built on portables. That was a mistake made that we're paying for now, basically. So sorry, had to get it
We
off
do
my
have to do
chest.
something now, and we realize that. And I can tell you, in 1998, 99, I lived in Spencer's Crossing, right over, it's before Argyle Elementary was even built.
Mhm.
That whole area, Oakley wasn't even there at the time, and we were zoned to SBJ. Of course, my kids actually went to Orange Park Elementary, but, that was the whole neighborhood. It's where it was originally all zoned, Orange Park High School, Orange Park Junior High, SBJ, and on the other side was W. Cherry. But this does make sense, Mr. Fossa, that this is the section that you're looking at that was originally Orange Park. I know it's very difficult, and parents are going to be upset because change is hard for everyone, and we all know that firsthand. But we have to do something, and we can't sit by and neglect it. We can't build another structure out at Orange Park High School to make it, our Oakley High School, to make it bigger. We know we can't do that, so this seems like the most sensible solution. And I appreciate that you're looking at the neighborhoods so that they all do stay together. I think that's very important. And I kind of wonder, because Mrs. Bull, you're right about the bus ride, but I wonder because if you're going from Spencer's Crossing all the way to Oakley High School and Oakley Junior, that's a ride too. I kind of think that it might only be a difference of a few minutes, and I don't know, I'm guessing, but to go from there to Orange Park High or in the same house to Oakley High, you know, I can't imagine that it's 45 minutes longer than it would have been.
Blanding Boulevard.
Yeah.
Blanding, you sit on Blanding Boulevard.
Right, you do. I mean, we've all been out there in the morning and we know traffic does go, but, you know, it is more traffic leaving the county than coming into the county. And I get it, it's not an ideal solution, but what else do we have? I mean, I do think we should look at the Ridgeview section, certainly, and if it is only 54 students that could go down to Ridgeview, we should consider that, especially with the new growth that's gonna go in, is it,
Cameron Oaks and also Kendallwood.
Kendallwood, right. So we need to do something. We can't ignore it any longer.
So if I could, you know, just to kind of bring this together and provide some direction. One, you know, our board policy, 6.01, requires us to do something.
Or we could change board policy and make it 3,000.
But it would take months to.
Just kidding.
It would take months to do that.
Just kidding. No, because then we bring in, I mean, 40 portables, which is down from what it used to be, but still, 40 portables? It's, you know.
So what I'm hoping for out of this conversation is direction, because staff recognize the fact that the board has to give us direction on how to do this, because we don't want to set up community meetings, go through this whole process. If the board isn't behind it, that would make no sense to me organizationally to do that. So I appreciate the two board members kind of weighing in and giving us their thoughts, you know, on this topic, and we would encourage others
Well,
in
what
order
do you guys
in order
think?
to help us make that decision.
I'm in agreement with everything you both said. I definitely, you know, I'm a mom of kids in school, and I know what it's like to have to navigate such a huge change with them. It's not easy, and it's upsetting, and, you know, everybody's comfortable with what's familiar. So, and I understand the concerns about landing, and I think it would even be valid that there may be safety concerns. Accidents and whatnot are probably more common on landing than they would be in a neighborhood. However, I don't think that it's in the best interest of those students ultimately to stay in a school where, you know, there's just too many kids in the building. I think that their educational needs could be better met if, you know, class sizes are lower and there's less traffic between classes, and, you know, I can see the concerns and I can see all the advantages as well. And I think, you know, sitting in a leadership position, sometimes hard choices are what we're faced with. And so this is one of those things, but I think that good leadership doesn't shy away from hard decisions.
Right. Ms. Bullock or Ms. Clark?
Well, you know, overcrowding poses a greater risk than all of these other things. I mean, we all are used to driving on Blanding Boulevard. We know it's terrible. I mean, these parents drive on that on a regular basis as well, so they're familiar with that. But again, it's when you get to the size of a college, which is where Oakley is, I mean, you know, it becomes such a management. You know, we talk about class size being so important. School size, in my opinion, is also very important, where the administrators know the students and are able to manage that. And I think, so I think it's definitely necessary to reduce and to give them some, because we know they're going to continue to grow, just like Mr. Boyack said. They've been very conservative, and it's always more. And that seems to be our pattern in Clay County, which is a good thing, but at a school, it's becomes more and more difficult. And I know your problems with trying to lunch and all those things that you have to do. So I definitely think that we need to make those changes.
I think one thing that would be beneficial for the community meetings is giving the Argyle folks an opportunity to have input into their new school. That one of the things we could discuss is what programs are you interested in? What is important to you in your child's education, and how can we meet that need at Orange Park High School? And it may be that they're surprised by what they find is already available, but it may be also an opportunity for us to dialogue and have some conversations about what we can offer at Orange Park that we haven't offered in the past. You know, and I think having that conversation of when you increase capacity, you increase funding at your school. So potentially there could be things that we weren't able to afford to offer at Orange Park before that now we can because we have an influx of students. So I think dialoguing about kind of the bird's eye view of from a management perspective of this is what we want to be able to do for your kids and we want to know what's important to you for your children.
And they'll also see that there are many similarities in so many of those programs as well, which is very helpful, yeah.
Correct.
And
The
that's,
presentation that we did for Oakley last
Right.
year was very good, when
Yes.
Richview came and showed
And I
all
think
the
that's what we
academies
need to
that
do.
they had, and
right,
parents were surprised to see what was available.
right.
You know, and there were some programs available at Richview that Oakley didn't have, so that's a good idea to, you know, of course you would do that anyway.
I think curb appeal is important, like you talked about, but I think, you know, speaking from a parent's perspective, I like a nice building, but it's more important to me what you're gonna offer my kid once they're in your building. So I think that's a good conversation that we can, or a good way we can steer the conversation during town hall.
It's gonna be a challenge, it's gonna be hard for the families, because change is hard for everybody. But to be able to have more access to career and tech programs and athletic, prom, homecoming, you know, I didn't realize you were limited in how many tickets you could sell. You know, that cuts out probably the freshmen and the sophomores completely, so, the schools where they spend the majority of their time right now, this is important that they're, you know, comfortable and happy, as well as learning the academics, but it's the whole thing.
Well, we want them
Molding
to
the whole
want to go to
child.
school.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know your staff will do a great job when they do the presentation. Mr. Bender will show, you know, spotlight everything that you can. And
Wear those classy socks too, you know.
he's got many others.
Well, I don't know about that.
Everything we do everything.
Right. It'll be orange.
That's right.
Orange and black for the day.
Ms. Clark, did you have anything to say?
Basically, I would have liked to have seen this done last year when we did Richview. But I know that was too much, maybe all at once. But I like the idea that this area has already been to that section. Maybe that's not good for the newer people. They, you know, they're not part of that, but, I think we have to. And I think we ought to do the same thing we did with Ridgeview, and it just be the seniors or those that are in a special program that want to stay in the program. But as far as traffic, I mean, after Orange Park Elementary, I took my son from, and I live on the wrong side of the railroad tracks in Orange Park. But I would drive him to Oakley Junior, and I didn't go Blanding. It was much faster to go south, Blanding, pick up Old Jennings, and speed up 23. But obviously Argyle's a little bit further in, so that makes it a little more difficult to even consider another route. But another mile on the bus, unfortunately, everybody's having to deal with that right now because of our shortages. So they're handling it, and I think, unfortunately, we're gonna have to go that route.
So do we want to give direction for the Ridgeview part also, or just the Oakleaf on the top?
Well, and going back to the Oakley, we're also talking about a junior high change. And I think that is incredibly important, that we do the junior high change at the same time as the high school change.
Right.
Because that allows the students to make that transition. They make their friends in the junior high, they stay at
Same
the high
kids are
school.
gonna
I think that is something that we didn't do before, and we didn't need to do as much last year with the Ridgeview change. So with this particular change, keeping that whole Oakleaf, or the whole Argyle group together is critical. And starting as soon after elementary school as possible to make that transition, I think is an ideal situation as well. I have a question about Kindlewood. You said 54 students right now, but it's building. So if we made that change now, we would affect 54 students, is that correct?
Right, the immediate effect would be 54 students.
But with that entire block that I see, north of Trailwood, east of FCX, what's FCX?
First Coast Expressway.
Hello, and south of Kindlewood Drive, if we have that block that's planning to go to Ridgeview, we could, Yeah.
And you can definitely include more of those. There's little neighborhoods going in there, 130 homes here, 130 homes there,
But that's gonna build out,
but that is gonna build out.
because we're right near the first coast expressway. So, to me, that makes perfect sense that we would now, let's do it, if we can do it ahead of time, instead of changing once it's been established, it would be much easier. And with that in mind, if that's continuing to grow, my question was also, are there any other neighborhoods that we could, sort of push that direction in that area?
Well, the next area north would be Eagle Landing.
Which is that's established.
Yeah.
I think she's talking about new development.
I'm talking about new developments.
Kind of like what we did, in Green Cove, where we had developments that were technically zoned for Patterson, but we pushed them.
Right. So the other neighborhoods that I'm looking at, maybe we can slide. Let's take a think of that area here. Bring up
Cheswick, well, that's Cheswick Oaks, but that would,
So the area that we're looking at, again, this is the junior high piece, but the area that we're looking at right now is right in here. So that whole area, actually, you go to Wilkinson as far as the junior high goes, so that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
But this area in here is a high growth area. And this is the First Coast Expressway, so everything to the east. And we did this we went all the way up to here, but there's more that's gonna be built in there. So I don't know of any other neighborhoods that we could pull that would be in the high school part, because we start moving north and you start moving into, like I said, Eagle Landing. And
Right.
there's nothing
Yeah.
north, and we start
Yeah.
bumping into where we're just talking about now.
correct.
So if that's the case, maybe could we bring up the high school piece?
I remember when we talked about this last year, there was a neighborhood, that used to be zoned for Middleburg High School. And there was conversation about, that they would rather return to Middleburg than go to
Fox
Richmond.
Meadow.
Was it Fox Meadow?
Fox Meadow.
Right, and that was Fox Meadow, which is right here, which is going to, we can't put any more in Middleburg right now.
No,
When is their cafeteria supposed to be completed?
They're gonna start in the summer.
Okay.
So this area here now goes to Ridgeview. But like I said, if we start pushing further north, then you're right into Eagle Landing, and that would be an extremely hard sell.
no, that's
To do
been
that.
established, that's
There's just
that's
nothing
Oak-
further.
Oakley officially.
The
So-
green area is Oakleaf, and if you just wanted to take more, there's nothing further north. Then you start bumping into the area that we're looking at now.
Well, I'm fine with this consideration about sending those 54 students to Ridgeview, but I think we should talk about the potential move of some students to Middleburg, once their cafeteria is expanded, and that neighborhood has requested that. It would alleviate some of the crowding as well.
And I haven't been, I don't know if you've had any opportunity to get into Fox Meadow. I've not been to any of their community meetings, and
I haven't
obviously in the
either.
last year. And we haven't been invited back into any of those yet. I don't know if they're having the community meetings that they've had. And that was the ideal situation, because they shared,
Right.
truly shared.
Mr. Fossa, once the cafeteria is done at Middleburg High School, if we were to transfer Fox Meadow over, what would that capacity go to go from 73% to what?
So the capacity I think I have it written here, so right now capacity is at
Yeah, see,
98.
Middleburg's already,
Right now, then it would go to 73%.
Right, but if we move Fox Meadow in, what does that 73% go to?
Those are like 1 acre lots, so there's not a big,
Yeah.
the density there is pretty wide. It's not a whole lot of students. I'd be kind of spitballing this
We'd
to
still
say
be in
maybe
the 80
100,
range.
somewhere in there.
Oh, that
Wouldn't be that
high,
many.
okay.
But that would be 2 moves for those guys in
Right.
3 years, because we moved them from Oakley to Ridgeview, and then you're gonna move from Ridgeview to Middleburg.
Yeah, I would wait
That's
on
not
this
right.
to see what the
Yeah.
situation is. The other side of that though, in Middleburg, my gosh, they're exploding as well
yeah, they are.
with housing. So
I think a lot
that
of the growth,
73% might not be as,
I think a lot of the growth is zoned for Clay High, not for Middleburg.
Clay High, you're right. And then what I'm having to do, because of the interlocal agreement, is I have to send them to a contiguous school. So some of the Clay High kids, they need to go, they're going to Ridgeview. So I'm pointing them to Ridgeview because Clay High is maxed out with all of their reservations at this time.
So yeah, and while it looks like there's a lot of growth in Middleburg, for whatever reason, that's not where the students are showing up. Which, I mean, at a 98% capacity, we couldn't afford to
Yeah.
have them go there
Right,
now.
right.
But
Yeah.
eventually, there will be seats there.
And you do hate for that neighborhood to move a second time,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, no,
that
no.
wouldn't be
Well, and
right.
we can see how they're feeling about Ridgeview as well. At the
Right,
time,
right.
they were
Well,
going
and-
to Wilkinson Junior High, and then they were being sent up to Oakley, and they had gone to a completely different elementary school.
Right.
So they really didn't have that
That
continuation of
feeder
those,
sort of
yeah.
pattern, yeah. Well, and I think, while we're talking about junior highs, it makes perfect sense to me that you would have, like we just talked about, a feeder pattern, so that Argyle would then go to Orange Park Junior and then to Orange Park High School. But I guess my question is, looking at capacity, I don't think that it's necessary that we have to move those students who are at Orange Park Junior right now. It could, or not Orange Park Junior, at
At Oakley.
Oakley Junior right now to Orange Park. Would you guys want to do that all at once, or would you want to have a grace period where those kids who are at, or who are at Oakley Junior now
You
can
mean starting
finish-
with the sixth graders right now?
Just start with the
And then
incoming.
sending them.
Mhm.
One of the complications there would be then that child would go to, what we're trying to avoid is a child that would go to Oakley Junior and
And
then
then-
wind up going back to Orange Park High School.
Right, but that would just be for the first two classes, right? The current seventh and eighth graders. And it would let them finish at their junior high without
And
disrupting.
you'd also have to talk transportation,
Yeah,
because that would mean two separate junior highs going from that same neighborhood,
right.
so.
Yeah, which would be, it would be a challenge, but it's probably, to Ms. Gilhouse's point, it probably makes more sense to take the children from sixth and the ones that are seventh and eighth right now, leave them, the seventh graders going to eighth, leave them with those upcoming
Or give
sixth
them the
graders,
option.
send them over to Orange Park Junior High and make it a clean, and so it would be a difficult
But the,
bus situation for that year.
yeah, but the challenge would be that the eighth graders,
Mhm.
the eighth graders then would turn around and go to Orange Park High School from
Oakley,
Oakley Junior
yes.
High.
Right.
And that would, that certainly would not be a feeder pattern,
No,
especially.
but that would just be for that 1 year.
Right,
You
it
know,
would
when-
eventually be the feeder
Eventually,
pattern,
it
just
will
kind of
all, it's just
gradual
a 2-year
move
growing
towards it.
pains.
But that, I would
Bound to
say,
happen anyway.
but if we can somehow give the parent the option,
Yeah, sure.
I mean, there
Yeah.
might be, Orange Park Junior offers a number of opportunities that many of the Argyle kids that I know have taken
Sure.
advantage of. I mean, they've gone to Orange Park Junior, so,
Well, given Orange Park Junior's capacity, they have that option anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, that, it's an open school, so if they want to go there, they can.
A lot of them probably don't realize they could do
Yeah,
open enrollment or an SPA.
So am I hearing you that you want to minimize the impact at the junior high level,
I
but
would
only for
prefer
the one grade level? If you're a
For the
sixth
first-
grader coming, you would go to
Right.
Orange Park
Orange
Junior.
Park.
right,
If you're a current seventh grader, you would continue eighth grade.
right.
So the only consideration for the board to consider then is that you're an eighth grader at Oakley, then you're going to Orange Park High School.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
outside of that, and whether that's a good scenario or not, I'm hearing you say, let the parent make the choice to do that.
It makes sense to me, if I were a parent of a child affected by that, I think it would be less disruption rather than for them to move junior highs and then go to the new high school. They could finish at their current junior high and then go to the high school.
But they'll go to the new high school. The choice would just be that seventh grader going to eighth.
Okay, let me try to do this then, provide some sort of clarity to it, and so if I'm not correct, then it's, you're obligated to speak out and say, no, you didn't get that correct. Okay?
You know we will.
So I always like to give that disclaimer for when you
Yeah.
do. Okay? So let's make sure, Ms. Dennis, let's make sure we get the wording down on this. So one, it appears to me that the direction of the board, when it comes to the high school attendance boundaries, would be to look at realigning the boundary of the Argyle area to go to Orange Park High School from Oakleaf High School. It also appears to be your direction that it would be 9 through 11, with 12th graders being exempt and staying there, okay? It also appears to me that your direction is to take the 54 students that currently go to Ridgeview High School, in Kenilworth and rezone that area to go to Ridgeview High School.
They currently go to Oakley High School to rezone them to
Go to
Ridgeview.
Ridgeview.
Correct.
It also appears on the junior high level, it appears to be your direction that you would like the sixth graders that are going to seventh grade that are in that attendance zone in the Argyle area would then be students of Orange Park Junior High School. And it also appears to be your direction that current seventh graders at Oakley Junior High School would have the option of staying at Oakley Junior High School for their 8th grade year, or going to Orange Park Junior High. Barring no objection, that's the way that we're writing it down. Okay. So then, here would be the plan to move this forward timeline-wise. Okay. Being that we have direction from the board as to how to handle this particular situation, I'm going to request that we put communication out to the parents of those that are affected as soon as possible, probably through letter out to those parents. I'm looking at potential dates for community meetings, so if we can all look at our calendars and let's make this determination. We're looking at Thursday, October 21st at 6 o'clock at Orange Park High School. It's important that families get the opportunity to see the school that they would be going to. I think that one of the challenges is that people sometimes don't even know. And so until you go, and I would just kind of add on to Ms. Gilhousen's comment about the offering and the programs. But also, for me as a parent, my own son has been redistricted 3 times, by the way, during his career. I went and I made a determination about the heart of the people there. I wasn't so concerned about the building. I wanted to know, did people care? And so, I think it's important for parents to show up and kind of make that judgment for their own people at Orange Park High School are the people that you're going to see and say, these are people for heart, for students. So barring no objection for October 21st, 6 o'clock at Orange Park High School, that seems to be a go. And then Monday, October 25th at 6 o'clock at Orange Park Junior High School for the junior high meeting.
I may not be here for that date.
I won't be here for the 21st, but I don't want to get in the way if that makes
Right.
everybody else's
You can have it
schedule.
without me too.
But I should be able to make the 25th.
Yeah, and I'll make the 21st, not the 25th.
I'll be at both. My district, I'll be there.
Okay, so then we would then have opportunity to discuss this at the October board agenda workshop. And that's the reason why it's those dates, by the way. And then we would have final advertising, November board meeting, final public hearing, December board meeting. That's the timeline for this whole process. Any comments or anything about that?
I like that timing because it gives the families an entire semester to seriously look at the options. My question is, when is the final date for selection of schools? So let's say I want to apply for the ACE program at Oakley High so I can stay there. Just using that as an example. When's the final date?
So
for any
that doesn't happen
special-
until January, February, so that would
Perfect.
still allow for that.
That gives everybody plenty of time to really look at what's available at both schools, to really, and other high schools for that matter, and be able to make a concerted effort to make those changes early if they need to or if they want to, and then the families can then make an educated decision as well.
And you bring a good point up, Mary. When is the dates for open enrollment?
So, yes, so I was gonna say, it's typically we follow after CTE, which would be they start in January, the National School Choice Week is usually the last week in January, which just kicks it off. We open it for the whole month of February, so usually by March, April, people have seats claimed, so it helps with registration and transferring and everything like that.
And if that could, and I hate to say we want to advertise that, but that needs to be part of the discussion. That needs to be part of the discussion for both of those schools. So, And I'm referring to the junior high and the high school as well, because those are, I mean, Orange Park Junior High offers all sorts of programs that are available, and that is awesome as well, so.
And I think we should definitely also talk to the parents about open enrollment.
Mhm.
I want them to know that they have choices, that, you know, we're not forcing anything on you, that, you know, these are the options we can make available to you.
And that the question for them then may be the transportation.
Exactly. The
Mhm.
transportation, obviously, if it's a choice, then you're responsible for transportation.
Because they've had the transportation from the neighborhood to Oakley, so
Right.
why can't that continue? Well, because
Right.
one of those changes.
All right, I appreciate the collaboration and discussion there. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Boyack or Mr. Gunder before we let them, they've got other jobs to do?
Welcome back, Mr. Gunder. We're happy to have you back. Mr. Boyack, you're a rock star there. You are a rock star.
I appreciate it.
I know that you are very much appreciated at that school. Thank you both for what you do.
Thank you guys. I know you guys want to hear about.
We appreciate everybody's support.
Okay, that brings us to our third topic, which is district school board boundaries and zones. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fossa for this discussion.
Ooh, bigger paper.
Bigger paper.
Damn again.
Finally.
Can I get one, Mr. Fossa?
I can read this one.
Yeah, the last ones weren't very good.
I'll fix them. Sorry about that. So this is actually just a continuation from the previous presentation that we had done. We had a request to do another map. So really, it's just one more map, so we show those, we'll start off on page 7. Yep, so this is the two that were presented at the board meeting that we did down in Fleming Island. So there's been no changes to this one, but we're asked to bring in another, which is the next one. And this is the one that takes the pink area, which is District 3, all the way out to the St. Johns River, bordered by the First Coast Expressway. And there's the numbers. This would increase to about 47,000. Again, the goal is to be somewhere around 43,000. Just to show you what it would look like. So this is, it looks huge. It's a heavy lift, I think, for District 3 because there's so much area there. And again, we're all at large. And then if we pull the next line, I believe that one will actually show the numbers. So here's a side-by-side option of all the different options, the percentages. Our goal is to be within 10%, and ideally we should be within 3%. And just to show you how they all compare. There'd be no changes across the board from option 1 for districts 2 and 7 because they remain the same. Sorry, 1 and 2, they remain the same. You can see the changes from 3, 4, and also 4 remains the same, but the big changes are between 3 and 5. 3 for the original option was at 6%, it goes to about 8% change, and then for District 5, which is at 0.7, which is great, goes to 4.1%. So if we just go back to the other slide.
Mr. Fossa, where does it say 10%? Because I was under the impression we weren't allowed to go over 3%.
Here's the next slide we have, which was, I think,
Is it in statute?
Again, the statute really relates to the county commissioners. So we're just kind of, sort of looking at the same thing that they have.
No, it applies to all of us, right, Mr. Victor? Statute applies to every elected official's boundaries?
You're talking about the difference of 3% versus 10%.
Yeah.
I can't tell you where the 3% comes from, other than that I have been to probably 5 or 6 seminars that are statewide over the last 20 years, and every one of them has said, try not to exceed 3%.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
When I gave my
to see this
original
10.
presentation to this board 2 or 3 months ago, there were 15% deviation between two districts, and I said that's a red flag that's gonna call attention, and you're gonna get tagged for it. I feel the same way about the 10 or 12%. 3% is the goal. Now, if there's somebody anywhere that can teach me differently than that, I'd like to know who they are. Okay, I can tell you they haven't done that for the last 20 years. It's been 3%.
This concerns me that, they're all, 10, 9, 6, 7, when I know there's something that was sent out to us 10 years ago that were the guidelines to follow. And I would really like a copy if you could find that, where it said you have to use major bodies of water.
Right.
And that, major throughways, but in there, I believe it said 3%. So I'm concerned that these numbers are, that it'll come back and will be, whatever flag means, fined, whatever, we have to follow the rules.
No, and we do on
Yes,
that,
Pete?
it
Do you have a
says the
copy
Florida
of that?
statute on that page, and where it says, 3% is ideal, what you're trying to shoot for. As long as we can get it, trying to meet.
But 10
trying to
is
go to
acceptable?
the- No, that raises a red flag.
Okay, but we have 10 on here.
But
That's one of the options,
that's one of the
10%,
options.
which
Right.
would recommend that option.
So we
So
don't choose
seven-
an option.
7 is okay, 8.3 is okay. It's
I mean,
under
it's
10.
not ideal,
Was
but
there
we're
a way
trying
to-
to shoot for ideal.
Was there a way to do it where everybody was within the 3%?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
When I look back at 2011, what passed on October the 18th, 2011, the maximum deviation was 1.6%. Okay, it can be done, because as my recollection was, there were 4 different things were presented to the board at that time, and every single one of them came under 3%. It was just how you wanted to cut the pie. So this 10%, I don't know where it's coming from, but I think you're asking for trouble with a 10% deviation.
So how hard would it be to go back and do it so that we're under 3%? Or how long would it take is a better question, because it doesn't matter how hard it is. We need to figure it out so that we're ideally under 3%.
If that's the direction that you want me to go, then we'll just go in that direction. I can't give you a hard answer for that right now, but I can look into that, because it's not done by population that I use, it's done by population that has to do with the census. And I gotta work with that.
Mr. Fossa, if I may ask a question. I know that you produced these with a program, these are yours.
So
Well, I say yours, I mean the school districts.
Because I look at students, and that's the only thing that I have is kids.
But you were able to produce these maps.
They can produce those maps with some help, yes.
Right. Were there, and I know that there were a variety of them that you looked at. Were there any maps at the time throughout this process? I mean, this has been going on for months for you, Craig, and we're just now getting into this. Were there any maps throughout that process that took us all equally to 3%?
No.
Okay. Were there any I'll use the word options, since these are the options here. Were there any other options that, I'm looking at option 1, and that gets us that gets us probably closer to 3% than the other 2. And I'm looking at that 9.6 and the 10%, which would be the red flags. I'm looking at the 8.3, which is too high. And the 7, the 7, that's getting in probably in the yellow border, let's say, versus the green, everything's good at 2%. Were there any other options that got us more equitably in that, let's say, 4% or anything like that? Or are these truly the best options that you
What we looked at to try to keep them similar to what we look like now, that was the closest that we could get at the time. Again, because the census is different, and again, it's using the census blocks.
Correct.
And that makes it a little different, then it could be jagged pieces and whatever. Trying to stick with keeping things to rivers and bodies of water and all that, the census blocks makes a little bit of a heavy lift there, so,
We were
I'll
also
be
trying
glad.
to keep the board members in their seats too.
That's what I was going to
what
bring up,
was
because there was one
tricky.
that I heard about that basically took me out of District 4. Was that more equitable for everything, or
Because it was
necessarily or
there
not?
was, no,
And I'm not throwing myself under the bus, I don't wanna leave my district, right? I'm just saying, I mean, there were a number of options that were looked at.
There were options that took board members out of their seats.
Mhm.
Well, I'm sure there's options that keep us in our seats and still get within the 3%. I mean, it can be done. Mr. Connell did it 10 years ago and didn't have any trouble. It can be done. So I think we need to follow the rules. And if 3% is ideal, then we should be bringing maps to the board that have a 3% or less. We shouldn't be seeing 7%, 6%, or 9.6, or any of that. We should have maps that are 3% or less, so figure it out. I mean, you know, that's kind of what we need to do, is to follow the rules.
Can I say something? I'm kinda happy with option one, and when I see 7% in District 2, that's an area where there can't be a lot of growth over the next 10 years, so maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way.
That's a good point.
Whereas or District 5, we know it's gonna blow out. Option one also aligns more with the county commission. I think our numbers are off between District 2, 3, and 4, but it's much closer for our citizens as to how everybody is seated. But I think this has to go for a decade based on census. And I think we have to see and recognize it's okay for 2 to be 7% right now. And it's okay for 5 to be 0.7,
That's a great
because
point.
that's gonna,
But we have to
Your
do it
District
based
5,
on
right?
right now.
right.
We're not projecting this with the 10-year growth that's gonna take place. We have to draw these lines based on the census
What
from
we have.
2020. So those are the numbers we have to be within a 3% margin of.
Well, here's a question.
Yeah, we have to be
With that in mind, here's the question. Would that 0.7% also draw a red flag? Because we're undercutting a particular district. Do you see where I'm coming from? I mean, yeah, that truly, option one, we are aware the growth is happening, it's there already. And so much of it has already come since the census. So we know that growth is there, that's giving us the potential to plan without, saying, well, it's not exactly 3%, but hey, I don't know if that would draw a red flag as well.
It won't, because it can be no more than 3%. Ideally, you want it close to 0. They should all be, evenly, 43, what was it?
Well, that's why they give a range, because you're not gonna make it.
Right. That's ideally, you want every district to be 43,649.
That would be-
But you can't
yeah,
do
you
that.
can't do that.
So 0.7% is great, and the rest should be
But I thought we had to be under 10, not
under
3.
Right,
3. We have to
correct.
be under 3.
Well, no,
We need clarification.
no more
Well,
than.
I'd like to see that, because Bryce, you need to find that and send it to the board. I'd like to see where it says that 10 is acceptable. Because I'm certain when it came to us 10 years ago, we could not go over 3%.
Ms. Gilhausen?
I was just curious, who is the enforcement body on this?
Who
Mr.
sets?
Bixner, do you know?
Department of State.
Department of State, so could we put an inquiry in with them?
We put it in with the Attorney General.
Okay. That would be, just so that we have clear cut,
Yeah, we could do what they call an EGO for an Attorney General opinion.
okay. It seems silly that you would have to, I feel like there should be clearer direction on,
I think before we go any further, we should know, is it 10 or is it 3, which is what we asked last month, is it 10 or is it 3, so.
well, and when you say it raises a red flag, what's the penalty for that? And at what point do they review that? And is it reviewed based on the current population? Is it reviewed based on the alignment changes based on the census population? What is the enforcement for that?
I would have to find that out, I can't answer that for you.
Because it seems to me, my preference would be, I want to do what best serves our community. And when we start moving boundaries around in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense to the community, there becomes a lot of angst and frustration, and I understand, I of course believe we need to follow the law and the rules here, but at the same time, if it's guidance and it's not something that's enforced, to me, it would make more sense to serve the community in a way that, it's not confusing or disrupting to them.
And you realize that this is just board member boundaries, this doesn't really
Right.
affect the
Right.
community
No,
as far as
I-
when children are going to school
No.
or anything like that, it's just
Right.
what number you vote for.
No, I understand
You know,
that.
people-
I know that in the 7 years I've been on the board, I have had multiple conversations with people who are frustrated by not understanding what school board member boundary they're in, and why do I vote on all of them, and why isn't it the same as the county commission, and it's all very confusing and convoluted. I get confused about that
They just need to
regularly.
look at their card and it'll tell them which district they're in, I mean, it's not very difficult.
Our goal is 43,649. You've given us percentages. And I'm looking at the numbers. And it's, I think sometimes when you are looking at, I mean, data, can manipulate data all sorts of ways. But when you're looking at the actual numbers and seeing, 43,649, and that 0.7 is 43,354, or 41,000, or 44,000, or 41,000, 47,000 for District 2 is higher. That's just what we've done there is we've pulled our dial over, isn't that correct?
Right.
Okay, and I'm looking at this thinking, okay, that 47,000, like Ms. Clark just said, it's gonna be pretty static in the future, because there's really not a lot of growth that can happen in that area at all. And I'm looking at District 4 at 41,000 and thinking, there's still growth going on there. District 3 with 41,000, those are, it's pretty static. It's pretty, everything is pretty static with that exception of District 5.
We're not looking at it for growth, Mary, we have to just look
I
at
know,
it
I
based on the
understand,
census.
but I'm looking at the first two digits of that thousands, 47, 41, 44, 43. It's a heck of a lot closer than it was. And it's much more equitable at this stage and in any of these, quite frankly, than it is currently. And in using the population numbers that we got for 2020, if this is how we would, to tweak one road just to get it to be 3% versus looking at the numbers and saying, this is pretty even. I'm looking at it from that perspective versus the percentage perspective.
I guess we need to know which percentage we have to go by before we can go any further. Because if it is 3% max, then none of this works. Then go back to the drawing board and bring us something that's less than 3%. If it's 10%, then, we can pick any of them.
So I guess our direction is let's get clarification on what's required.
That would be,
The Florida statute.
It doesn't give a percentage, it just
What
says
does it?
as equal as possible. With the guideline of 3% being ideal, with 10%, as you get closer to the census, when it gets to be 10%, that's a red flag to, it's time to change borders. So in the statute, there's not a percentage given, it just says as equal as possible.
Mr. Bickner, I'd like your legal opinion on what you think.
I can find you a reason for the 3%, and I can find you what the problems are if you don't reach it, and I can produce that to you within a week.
Thank you.
When I look at this map that he's put up here for number 3, and I look at 39,609, and I compare that to 46,980, I can see a delineation line right there where you could probably shift 4,000 and reduce one to 42 and raise the other one to 42 or 43, high 42s. It's there. It's not, the only one that's out of line is number 3, which is at 47,000, where there is zero growth as far as I can tell, but I don't know. So I don't see where the difficulty lies, just as Bruce Bickner sitting here not being intimately informed of all of those numbers. With balancing this to within, even if it's within 4%, or 4.5%. But 10%, I think, is way out of the ballpark, because we're starting at square one. This is the day it's supposed to equal out, because this is census day. Now, 9.5 years from now, it's gonna be way out of whack like it is right now. But at some point, you've gotta have a starting point, and the starting point here, just from looking at the map that's sitting in front of me, there's a major thoroughfare that goes down, and cuts off and could be included back into District 2, and it would take from District 1, or District 1. And it balances that out. Now,
You're looking at option 3.
I'm looking at option 3.
Well, but if you look at option 1, and I mean, the numbers are much easier in option 1. They're
And they
real
may be
close.
easier to balance
And there
out.
might be another road or something that would,
Well, I think option 3, there's such a large landmass in,
that's over.
District 3, you know, it's just.
I'm not trying to give you an option. I'm just saying that just as sitting here as a layman looking at a map,
Well, all 3 of these are different, yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
how it can work.
But keep
And
in
it's-
mind, they say follow the natural boundaries, bodies of water, throughways, but this doesn't affect any districts as far as schools where children go. So if you have to break a neighborhood in half, it's not affecting anybody other than if Miss Clark lives next to me, she might have a different number than I have.
Well, I'll tell you what the superintendent of election says to me is nobody gets madder than somebody that's in a district different than the person across the street from them.
Mhm.
So
But they all vote for all
when you
of
cut
us.
and go down College
Yeah,
Drive, that's a
not-
whole lot
yeah.
different than cutting down Ridgecrest. Okay? Because you've got neighbors that are right there. College Drive, you have 2 entirely different communities.
I get
They
it.
don't exist even.
But with school board, they vote for all 5 board
Yeah,
members.
of
We're
course.
at large, so it really makes no difference what that
So-
number is. And the
Well,
county commission, theirs is completely different than us. You know, we're not drawing their lines, they're gonna do their thing.
And they are single-member districts.
Right.
Their people vote for them, and that's all. They've only got to satisfy this little segment of the society.
So I can understand why we're moving the lines for county commission might affect people differently.
Makes a great deal of
We
difference.
don't
We're not
need
the
to
county
worry about
commission.
them. We just need to worry about us. If this is the statute, 1001.36, there's nothing in here about percentages. Is it? I mean, it just basically says, set it up in 5 districts, and we can make any changes necessary in the boundaries of any district, school board, or residence areas, or blah, blah, blah. I mean, if that's the only statute that we have regarding the numbers,
And I can't tell you that, because there are administrative rules, and there may be other
that's where we need to
procedural
get more
guidelines that I don't know.
direction.
I have not looked at
If
it.
that's the 3% business, because there's no percentage in that, any of that, so.
So why don't we do that, Mr. Fossa? Can you, Bruce, you give us the opinion and the information you're gonna get, and then we can give direction as to
I can do that.
the percentages. Thank you.
All right,
How about the timeline on this, Madam Chair? So when would we discuss it again, and what's the timeline to get it done?
I was just thinking, we were trying to get this done so that we could have this passed by December 31st, because if we don't do it in this odd numbered year, then we have to wait till 2020.
So you would have to advertise, correct me if I'm wrong, you
Right.
have
No,
to
that's-
advertise at the November meeting and vote at the December meeting.
You'd have a motion to advertise, and it would be set for advertising that week of November, and then, so that it would be for a public hearing and passage.
So really then a final decision then would have to be crafted, you know, 1 week, at least 1 week prior to the November board meeting. So that brings you back to October, whatever that is.
Or a
Ms.
special,
Sonora had
October
those-
workshop.
a special
or we
meeting
needed
following
it.
our next agenda review.
Okay.
Ms. Sonora had those dates the last time we were
I
together.
just want to make sure that we're going to be able to complete the mission.
Correctly.
So October 26th is our next agenda workshop. And if we could get something prior to that, there are no other meetings prior to that, aside from the school board meeting on the 7th. Or we could have a special meeting if we needed to. I think, Ms. Honora, would that give us, the 26th of October would give us
I mean,
enough time for the November meeting? We could advertise then for the month of November. and then go to the December meeting for the final decision. But the problem we might run into, well, no, the final decision, we would have until December 9th, actually, if we choose to move that
Yes.
meeting.
Right.
So, okay, got it. So that should give us plenty of time still. So, Mr. Pasa, I guess if we could get information, if you had sent us out some ideas prior to the last time we met, is there a chance that we could get something maybe prior to that workshop?
I'll listen to you prior.
That, just so we have a little bit of chance to look at it if we're going to be making a decision at that workshop. It's a
Especially
special
if it's
meeting.
something we're voting on.
Yes.
We need it,
Yeah.
you know, we need it
Ahead of time.
earlier than handing it to us now. That would be great.
Thank you. Did you have to get us up today?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Hated doing some plans, hated. Mr. Broski, are you done for now?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Brodsky.
Mr. Brickner,
I do have
I know
one-
you had something that you wanted to bring to our
I do,
attention.
Florida Statute 286.011, subparagraph 8 requires that I ask you if we can have a shade meeting so that we can discuss litigation. I would set it up for October 7th. It would be at the end of the agenda. We are allowed to have a shade meeting for attorney conferences with the board on issues limited to settlement negotiations and strategy sessions. And that's what this would be about, and it's something we need to do before a mediation that's scheduled late in the month.
So we would do this after the meeting.
It would be at the end of the meeting, it would be the very last thing before, what you have to do is open the shade session during the meeting, and then you have to close the shade session and come back to regular meeting, and then adjourn.
Okay.
Traditionally, we've done it at the very last thing. You close it, you come back in, anything further, and then you close it out. So
Okay.
I'll just go through it with you and explain it all and
Thank you.
do the agenda items.
I love how you always provide new and interesting options
Well,
for us.
it used to be done a lot when all the litigation was done in-house. It's done less.
Got it. Thank you.
So Ms. Bowler,
Yes.
if I could, I do want to point out a couple things. Always important to remember the positive things that are happening out there. So information was released from the state relative to student assessment achievement data. So this would be additional data that was released by the state. So I'm happy to report we're once again overall top 10 school district. We're 9th out of 67 districts. Some additional data points that I'd point out: for ELA achievement, we were 6th. For ELA gains, we were 8th. Lower quartile ELA, we were 7th. Math achievement, we were 10th. Math gains 8th. Lower quartile math, 10th. Science 6th. Social studies 5th. And our graduation rate was 93.4, which is 4th in the state and the highest ever in Clay County school history. All of that while the pandemic was going on. So very, very proud of our staff and everyone involved in that. In addition, I'm proud to report out that our number of COVID positive cases has gone down significantly. It's gone down to the number for this past week was reported was 71. That's a 480% reduction over time, and I think that I would be wise to point out to the board that the nature of the virus is such that there's ups and downs to this. From a data perspective, last year it was January that we saw an uptick, so it would seem like common sense to me that at some point the numbers will go up again. We must continue to do the mitigation strategies that we have in place and keep that mindful, and at the same time bring school back to as normal as possible given the current conditions. So, I'm really proud of how we opened up the year and how we've handled this particular situation. And of course, we're always faced with constant rules, regulations, and information that comes out and misinformation that comes out. So I view my role as to put all those aside, manage them the best that we can, and move the district forward. And so I'm happy to report that's where we're at now. And so I've seen by the number of emails that I've received that we've hit a point in the school year in which people have grown to know that fortunately or unfortunately, this is the normal that exists right now, and we're all finding new and creative ways to deal with it, you know, and that's kind of where we're at, so I just wanted to report that.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Comments or questions?
Did you guys want to speak? Anything you wanted to talk about?
Well, I believe Mr. Bickner pulled the agenda item,
Oh, okay.
so
Got it.
I don't know what happened.
Thank you.
All right.
It's always good to see you, by the way. Thanks for coming. Any other comments from the audience? Thank you. Any other further comments, Mr. Superintendent? Mr. Bickner, any other further comments?
No, thank you.
Ms. Bullock, would you like to start with school board member comments?
I just have a question, Mr. Broski. You gave the graduation rate. Could we, I know in the past we've gotten them by school. Could we get that information again?
Sure.
I'm doing a program for the Daughters of American Revolution, and they wanted me to feature the three schools in Keystone, so I wanted to have that information. I don't have anything else to report. That's all. I just had a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gilhousen?
Nothing for me.
Ms. Clark?
It's been interesting in the last month. I was able to go to the Duval Federated Women's Republican group, and they had Chancellor Oliver there, so he was very entertaining and very upbeat about parents staying involved and, you know, what we're doing on the state level. And, you know, I just reiterate that obviously our goal is to keep it as normal as possible for our children, and that's my goal. So,
Thank you. Ms. Kirkus?
Nothing, thank you.
I have nothing, so on that note, our workshop is adjourned.
So can I suggest a 10-minute recess
Yes.
in order to give time for conversation to occur in an executive session right after that?
Absolutely.